Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Last week, the Chancellor delivered his budget on International Women's Day, a day when women and men across the world celebrated women and their contribution to society and highlighted how important it is to have an inclusive, gender-balanced workplace. So I can't think of a better day than International Women's Day for the Chancellor to show how much we value the contribution that women make to the economy. Instead, the Chancellor used his budget to continue the hard Tory austerity policies that disproportionately affect women and men, and indeed their families across this country. We know that women are affected twice as hard by this government's dangerous obsession with austerity. And it's very clear that Tory austerity is gendered, because cuts to public sector jobs, an increase in temporary and zero-hour contracts affect women the most. Women make up the majority of workers living in poverty, with many juggling 2 or 3 low-paid part-time jobs as they try to make ends meet. Where is the help then they so desperately need to scramble from just about managing to being able to provide for their families without the fear and stress of ever-shrinking household budgets? The Chancellor started his speech by talking about preparing for a brighter future, but I have to ask him and his colleagues, in what parallel universe is the future bright for the 300,000 children that will be forced into poverty as a result of their refusal to stop the cuts to the work allowance? This despite a report from the Resolution Foundation only this month which warned that the Tory government's tax and social security policy would drive the biggest increase in inequality since Thatcher. Mr Speaker, I grew up in a single-mother family under Thatcher, and it strikes me that not much has sadly changed. And it is both sad and ironic that on the same page of the budget document, this government gives money to tackle domestic abuse, a welcome move, yet refuses to take action on the punitive 2-child limit and scrap the repugnant rape clause. And as he spoke about the brighter future, hundreds of WASPy campaigners, including women from my Livingston constituency, protested outside Parliament, and still the Chancellor failed resolutely to outline a single measure to tackle state pension inequality. Those women worked hard for their bright future, and this Tory government is extinguishing it. The cuts announced will mean Scotland's day-to-day budget will be a massive £1 billion worse off. By 2020, Scotland will be £2.5 billion off in real terms. And the IFS has forecast that austerity could last until the middle of the next decade, meaning Scottish household and public services could ultimately face 15 years of UK government austerity. And a separate report from the IFS this month projected that child poverty would increase to 30% by 21-22. And that said, it was entirely explained by the direct impact of tax and benefit reforms. And let's not forget, Mr Speaker, it was only a few months after the Tory government came to power that it scrapped child poverty targets. And that came just before child tax credit cuts. What a shameful way to start your time in government. And this Chancellor had a chance to reverse that, and he did nothing. Now, I've asked the government to tell us why they brought forward nothing to reverse the punitive cuts that will hit mid-low income families. Why has he done literally nothing to protect millions of children from the prospect of poverty? Because the Resolution Foundation found that the poorest quarter of working-age households are projected to be around 5 to 15% worse off. And that is an income growth. The RF says that the worst period of household income growth for the poorest half of households since records began in the mid-1960s. And this is before the swingeing cuts are due to hit and before Brexit. The Chancellor told his budget that his budget continues the task of getting Britain back to living within its means. I am sure that there are thousands of families across the country who would love to have the means within which to live, but they don't. And yet they are simply struggling every day because of the punitive measures of this government. What will the Chancellor tell lone parents on universal credit who will lose an average of £2,380 a year? Because the End Child Poverty Coalition has said the impact of the benefits freeze in the context of rapid price rises has a dramatic effect on family incomes. Families on a low income simply cannot afford to pay increased that will happen as a result of their policies. Now, a hard Tory Brexit remains the major threat to Scotland and our economy. Brexiteers will claim that revised figures on debt, GDP and borrowing show that negative effect of Brexit has been exaggerated. But it hasn't happened yet, and the OBR has said that there will be no structural improvement in the public finances, and forecasts for the next 5 years remain virtually unchanged. The impact of a hard Brexit is yet to be felt. And, Mr Speaker, amongst the utter chaos of a hard Tory Brexit, the change for entrepreneurs and for the self-employed is going to be devastating. The SNP wholeheartedly believe in flexible labour markets, but that flexibility must be guarded against vulnerability, and self-employed and the workers in the UK on low incomes do not enjoy the same guarantees as we have heard. This budget was an opportunity to do the right thing, to support women and low-income families, to boost business and to put an end to austerity. Yet it is nothing more than an opportunity lost by this government. This government might see a bright future, but it looks more to me like dark clouds of a perfect storm for the rest of us. Winter is coming, Mr Speaker, and Scotland is headed in a different direction. It will, I think, be a new dawn for us.